Traditional American cowboy beans. Now, beans, like when I think of beans, I don't really think Americans usually eat beans. I think of it mainly as a British or a Mexican food. We have beans on toast, sometimes with cheese. Mexicans have a lot of beans in their diet. And so when I saw that there is like a traditional cowboy method of making beans, it really intrigued me as to like, is it going to look similar to the beans we eat over here, or is it going to be completely something unique?
Hey, what was more traditional going down the old trail during the cattle drive days than what? A big old pot of beans. But these ain't your ordinary beans, folks. We done jazzed these up, talked to them, and they're going to be the best beans that you ever eat. So come on, we will be glad to have you.
All right. I love that kind of music.
Hey, thank y'all for stopping by camp, and camp might be in a different spot, and done got one of them drive-bys that we have. We're in Lebanon, Missouri at an annual event, Wagons for Warriors, and folks, this is the largest chuck wagon gathering that I know of in the world, and there'll be around 30 here today, and we're going to raise money for a great cause, we are. But what are we talking about, and what could be more traditional than when you got a bunch of old wagons gathered around? Old wagon food. I'm thinking about something that really goes with it. You know, there was always coffee and there was biscuits, but a thing that was there every meal, I guarantee you, was beans. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. And we're going to go through this little process and show you what I think beans need to be and how they need to be spiced up.
The variation of American accents is huge. Like when you listen to him and how thick his accent is, and you compare it to someone from like Minnesota, or it's just, wow, the variety.
Talk about the different kinds of beans and the history they played in the part of the trail going down through there to feed them cowboys. What did they eat going down the trail? Oh, they pulled up to Mickey D's and said, hey, I'm at the drive-up window. Folks, none of that ever existed back then, and I think the food was probably better. Now, old Cookie, he had a job to feed cowboys, and back there during the trail drive days, there was not 3 meals a day. There was a very early morning meal and a late night meal. Some of them guys would be trading off in shifts of watching cattle, and some of them eat at this time, some of them going to eat at midnight. So old Cookie, he had a lot of stuff to keep going. And the thing that he always had on the fire, coffee and beans. Now, beans was easy for him to take, because remember, there's no refrigeration. We ain't talking about we're going to have none of this just stuck in an ice chest somewhere. He had all dry goods, dried coffee, sugar, flour, beans.
Yeah, things that are non-perishable, things that will just last, because if you've not got a fridge or a freezer, that food's going to go off real quick, like, meat, veg.
You got to have some of them beans. Now, most of the time back during Cookie's days, they were cooking a lot of pinto beans, but also they were cooking a lot of Anasazi beans. And even more than that, they were cooking some kidney beans. Now, there's little green beans, there's lima beans, there's white navy beans, there's all kind of beans in the world. But a pinto was the go-to bean. Now, he'd get them in probably a 50-pound sack, throw them in the wagon there, and he'd just dip out of there with an old coffee can or a pot, what he thought they needed. Now, when I'm feeding beans, I use a pound of dried beans to feed 10 people. That'll usually get you by. But folks has always asked me, what kind of beans do you like to use? Well, if I'm buying pinto beans, I really prefer casserole brand. They've always been good and clean for me, and you can even buy them at Sam's pre-cleaned beans.
And beans, the good thing about beans is that the energy is like slow release. So if you eat like a good amount of beans, you've got energy for like hours and hours and hours. And I think they're high in fiber as well. They're quite good for you, beans. They should be more popular, really.
So you ain't got to do what? Go through here and pick the rocks out. And like this little bean right there, see him, Shin?
What's wrong with him?
He's a little shriveled up bean.
Oh.
He didn't get to make the trip. And you be picking out them rocks if there's any in there. Now, also a very important thing that you got to remember when you're cooking beans is you count them beans. You go all the way till you get to 39, and every 41, you throw it out.
Why? Is that cowboy tradition, I'm guessing?
That way you ain't gonna have no gas in there. But get your beans. Today we're mixing kidney beans and pinto beans together. I got a bean pot over there, and we're gonna let the water warm, and then we're gonna pour the beans in. Now, we done got them dried, picked, and clean. I left that one out there so y'all could see what we was doing and going on. But go through there, get them rocks. Grandma said leave the rocks in there, they'll float to the bottom, and if you get them, it's good for your gizzard. So Now, traditionally when I make them, I'm just usually most of the time using jalapeno, onion, garlic, cilantro. But back then, old Cookie had a very wide selection of old dried peppers that he took with him on the wagon.
Oh, wow. So even back then, he had seasoning. Thank God, because beans without seasoning, I mean, they're just going to be pretty bland, aren't they?
I like to use an ancho or a cascabel or a guajillo chili. They're going to add so much flavor to this. Now remember, our water done warmed. So we're going to go ahead and dump these beans in there. And I hear some of you out there already saying, he probably going to soak them beans. Folks, I think I'm probably about 2,600 foot elevation. I'm not going to soak that beans because that old stove standing behind Shan there, known as Bertha, she will reach temperatures unknown to NASA, and she will boil beans in about 2 hours and have them done like you cooked them all day.
Temperatures unknown to NASA.
But I have had to soak my beans a lot, going in different places where there was what? High altitude. Beans cooking at sea level versus 7,000 foot versus 10,000 foot are gonna cook totally different. Now, if you're in them places like that, I like to soak my beans, like put them in an ice chest, get the water good and cold, pour the beans in there, let them soak overnight, but make sure that water stays cold because you don't want them beans to sour. And then you can rinse them, drain them off, go back to starting them at that. But I have also cooked them really slow from like 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night with.
Wow, 12 hours to cook beans. That's ages. I'm thinking my mum, when she makes beans, maybe an hour and a half.
Just a little bitty fire and get them done. But folks, a lot of people soak them beans. I don't see a need in it till you get up there at a very high altitude. So we done got our kidney beans in there, our pinto beans. Now traditionally, old Cookie probably wouldn't have had no ham hock. I do love a ham hock, but he would have probably used salt pork or some old jowls or some old fatty bacon that maybe he had left over there, some side meat. So we're gonna chunk him in there. And guess what we got here? We have got us some guajillo chilies. And we're gonna break out the, what you call it, Shen? What do you call this? Remember?
Mortar and pestle?
Yeah, but there's another name for it that I can't remember.
Masher.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it the masher.
The masher.
Them chilies has been roasted.
To be fair, the masher's a lot more concise, isn't it? Just mash up those peppers.
Some, and I just want you to just take them and just grind them up a little more, because when you break these down like that and go ahead and put them in there with them beans, we're gonna get some of that good old rich traditional flavor, but we're gonna get some of that good smoky flavor that it brings out too. And they ain't gotta be finely ground. I just want them where they're in pretty small pieces, because that hot water gonna work a number on them too. So get them in there, a garlic clove, and it is a big one of them elephant ear garlics. And old Cookie had one of these hanging, I'm pretty sure right there, an old hash knife. This is the best chopping device I've ever seen in my life, but I like to mash them garlic, give them a little bitty mash in there. Now I just like to chop this up sort of best you can. We're just gonna chunk it right in there. Good to go. Now let's talk about onions.
I'm hoping he's going to season generously, because beans by themselves are quite bland.
There's white onions, there's yellow onion, there's purple onion. Some people call them a red onion. They've always been purple to me. I love a white onion in beans. Now, I've used a Vidalia onion some in beans, but I prefer a good white onion that you're going to put in there. And a lot of people, when they get them onions and they're going to use them, they're going to chop them up in some little bitty pieces. So just don't make them so small that you can't find them in a pot of beans. And I think a white onion holds up really well and really gives some natural flavor. So 2 onions is what we're using today with 4 pounds of beans. And I like to use 2 jalapenos. Now, Shan know if it's me, I ain't gonna get the seeds, the stems, nothing out of them. And that's the way it's gonna be today, because
So everything's straight in there.
for me and my friends, and we like our food to bite back. Now, if you don't want yours that hot,
Take out the seeds.
peel that stem and them seeds out of there. You'll be good to go. You won't even know it's got a pepper in it. We got the onions in there. We got the jalapeno. We got the dried chilies in there. And what else do we have in there, Shan? Do you remember what else we might have snuck in there? Some beans and some garlic, yeah. And folks, I love to put some cilantro in mine, but not fresh. Now, a lot of people tell me, why don't you use fresh cilantro? To me, it tastes like soap. To a lot of people, it tastes like soap. Shan, she be loving it, but not so much me. I love
Dude, I could listen to this guy read me like a novel. That accent, man, it's just like, it's relaxing to me. Like, that deep southern accent.
to use dried. So I'm gonna get me probably a I'd say nearly a fourth of a cup for 2 pounds
So
of
like
beans,
some
which
herbs.
is, ooh, the wind is blowing.
Yeah.
So we're going to
The wind just took like half of those herbs.
put about that much in there. And I want y'all to meet me at the fire.
At the
Ooh,
fire.
look what I got here. I have got the Cadillac of all Berthas. Me and Rich and the good folks at Hasty Baked Grills there in Tulsa have went off the old Bertha pattern and made this one. Some of you might have seen it in our fried onion video that come out, the Oklahoma fried onion burger. Whoo, them things is good. Cookie didn't have one of these. So on some ranches, early 1900s, late 1890s, you might have seen another little wagon hooked to the back end of that one, which was called a pup wagon, and there might have been a little old two-hole stove in there, and he just
The sound effects. Oh.
dump it out and cook with it. Now, a lot of them didn't have it, but some did. I like this because, folks, I ain't bending over on the ground letting everything blow in my gravy and eggs. We designed this just like the original old Bertha. I'm gonna take an eye out of it because Bertha has really, really hot, and then when you take an eye out, it's got, whoo, I'm gonna get some kind of that hot. So we're just gonna put this over and we're just gonna let it begin to simmer, and then we're gonna let it begin to boil. We're gonna give it one little stir right now. And some of you said, wait, he ain't seasoned that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was thinking, where's the salt? Where's the pepper? Where's the garlic? You know, where's the seasonings?
Well, folks, I don't like to season my beans till they start cooking pretty good, because if you just put it all in there at one time and keep cooking it, you done boiled most of the flavor out of it. So we're gonna stir them up, let them come to a good rolling boil, and I'll meet you back over here at the fire and I'll show you what else is going in them. Well, old Bertha has done her job. We've been on about probably 10 or 12 minutes, and we have got us a good low simmering boil, as you can see in there. And let me pull them up. You can still distinguish between a kidney bean and a pinto bean. And guess what, folks? It is time to season at this point.
All
right
right.
now, we ain't gonna season at the first, remember, because you're gonna boil some of that away. Now, traditionally, I wouldn't be using like chili powder and all this stuff, but I'm sort of jazzing these up maybe the way old Cookie had so many years ago, because
So chili powder, even though he's already put like 3 whole jalapenos in there with the seeds. So this is going to be quite spicy.
he wouldn't have a lot of what I had. He wouldn't have original Kent Rollins seasoning nor the mesquite. So we're gonna add probably about, I would say, a tablespoon and a half of chili powder, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, about 1 tablespoon of cumin, if we can get it in there for the wind blowing. And then we're going to use some of our mesquite seasoning, which has got some ancho chili in it. Now, folks be telling me, oh, is that really spicy? No, it's just the right blend to give you a little bit of a touch of heat, but also a lot of that smoky flavor. Probably about a tablespoon, and then about a tablespoon of our original. Now, we will season these to our suiting
Good amount of seasoning. Good amount of seasoning. You're going to definitely have a lot of flavor in there.
at the end to make sure that it's just right. And you notice I got me a pot here that has got some water in it that stays hot. So when you add beans to water as they boil,
Add water to beans.
remember when you're adding water to beans as they boil, and we want them to come to a boil and just watch them, just let them simmer there. But you need to put hot
got
water
him
back
there.
in there when you're adding it, not cold water. Ain't no sense in shocking them little fellers. You done got them all hot and warm and toasty in that bathtub. Don't be pulling some cold water on them. Keep you some hot water going. So we got her stirred. We're gonna let them cook till they get, that was hot. I just want y'all to know, when you picked that up, that was hot. We're gonna let them get really good and
This guy's funny, man.
tender, and I'll show you a trick there to last. When you pull that bean up out of there and the skin cracks, we're getting pretty close.
Ooh, what's that? Some kind of like gumbo type thing? Jambalaya? love it that this culture has persisted, you know, through the years. You know, it's fun to see the sort of rural cowboy rustic sort of culture side of America, as well as the, you know, the super modern stuff as well.
The new Bertha here has cooked them about 2.5 to 3 hours, and they are done. Now, you can cook a bean to death, but why would you? When you can pull a bean up out of there, and he still looks like he's holding his shape, but he is good and soft, as you can see, that bean is done. Don't cook him. We ain't making refried beans out of these. These is beans like in a stew pot. Now, I know times are going to vary from where you live and what altitude you are, and how you cook them. Now remember, we talked about soaking beans before, and if you need to at high altitude, you go ahead. But put them over a fire, keep you some hot water, always add to them. But you can see how these beans have sort of thickened up. That's what a lot of people
Soaked up all of that flavor.
call soup beans, what I call good beans, right there for sure. Now, set them over, just let them sit. Hey, you're good to go after that 3 hours. Just keep them warm. The longer them beans sit there and you stir them every once in a while and eat out of them, the better they're going to be. They're going to be better the next day, and there ain't going to be none left over by the time you get to the next day. Oh, we dripped on the new Bertha. It's a self-cleaning oven. It'll take care of itself. That's a wrap. I'm through. Them are fit to eat. We're done. And then we're going to do the bean move. Oh, yeah, them was so good, them beans was. I mean, that's what's happening.
I'd say you had enough.
Now, remember, when you're cooking beans, add whatever you want to in there for a meat source, whether it be chorizo, ham hock, salt pork. But if you're using a salt pork, don't salt them beans or don't use so much seasoning, because you're going to get a lot of that salt off the salt pork. Remember, everything that we used in this video will be down there in the little description, and the recipe will down there as well. As when you click on that link, it'll take you to it. Traditional cowboy beans with a little southwestern, south of the border flair. Use them old dried chilies, you won't regret it. Thank you, Steve Hull and the fine folks at Lebanon, for this great event that we do. And as always, I salute all our servicemen and women and all the veterans who have kept that old flag flying over camp for so many years. God bless you one and all. And for y'all, hey, guess what? I'm gonna see y'all down the I Make the Best Beans in the World trail. God bless you.
Are you taking us down the brisket taco road now?
You know, we are going to go down the brisket hot dog.
Man, like it seems like such a fun, nice atmosphere there, and the beans looked really good. The combination of the flavors. I was worried initially that he wasn't going to season, you know, them as much as I would have, and he definitely did. Like, as well as, because he cooked them down for like 2-3 hours, a lot of the heat, hopefully from those jalapenos and the crushed chilies and the chili powder, would have reduced quite a bit, so it wouldn't be quite as hot, because I like a little bit of heat but not too much. But yeah, those beans did look really, really tasty. I'd love to try some. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.